Hello everyone, my name is Garvin and I read things and blather about them on the internet for your entertainment. Today we launched a multi-month long look at the story of Atlantis and how it's changed over the millennia since Plato first told it. Part of Plato's telling is claiming that the story originally came from Egypt and was carried over by Solon. Now, because there is a vast ocean of history out there, some of you might not know who Solon is, and that's okay. What I'm going to do in this video is provide a rough and ready thumbnail sketch of who Solon was and why he was important. Why did Plato even name drop this guy, right? Solon was born in Athens around 630 BC to a noble family. So noble that he could trace his family tree all the way back to the last king of Athens, in fact. As a young man, he first achieved renown by leading the armies of Athens against the army of Megara, a rival city contesting the rule of the island of Salamis. While he suffered early setbacks, he was able to rally his army and keep them in the field by reciting a poem he wrote, and then he led them to victory against their enemies. Despite the military victory, the Megarians, however, refused to withdraw their claim, so the case was taken to the Spartans for judgment. Solon triumphed there as well when his arguments won over the Spartan judges, securing the island for Athens. So this guy not only won on the battlefield, but in the courtroom. After this, he was chosen to be an archon. This was big because there are only 9 archons active in Athens at any one point, and they're chosen by a council made up of the retired archons. Their job is basically to oversee the laws of Athens, and they also have a wide latitude to make reforms and changes to the legal code. Solon instituted a series of reforms. Now, these reforms, what they were exactly, is disputed and argued over, but I'm going to tell you what the ancient Greeks believed those reforms were. First was a canceling of debts, because there was a debt crisis going through Athens. He also made it illegal to sell a debtor into slavery, which was a big deal. Solon himself set an example by canceling debts he held, which were believed to be about 5 to 15 talents worth. An Attic talent, by the way, is about $1,000 worth of gold. There were also a number of public offices at the time that could only be held by men of noble birth. Solon reformed that so that men of common birth could hold these offices as long as they met certain wealth requirements. Now, to you and me, that doesn't sound very progressive or forward thinking, but to the people at the time, this was mind blowing. On top of this, he expanded the vote to the lower classes and split the legislature into an upper and lower house. He also undertook a variety of economic reforms, such as establishing widespread cultivation of olive trees for the production of olive oil and banning the export of fruit and other produce. This is because the large-scale farmers of Attica, the region Athens is in, had been exporting grain for higher profits even in the midst of starvation at home, and he decided he was going to put an end to that. He also passed a law that stated fathers were responsible for helping their sons find a trade and securing trading in it, and if they did not do so, those same sons were not obligated to support their father in his old age, which is kind of interesting in of itself. To help with that, though, he encouraged foreign tradesmen to move to Athens and granted them citizenship as long as they brought their families with them, which to other ancient Greeks was mind blowing. He also established a new standardized system of weights and measurements, which made trade easier, generating more wealth for Athens. Once he completed his term as Archon and set his reforms down, he turned around and left Athens for 10 years. There's a number of reasons given, from avoiding people thinking he was trying to take power over Athens for himself, or that there was an agreement that his reforms could only be abolished with his consent. And his thought was, well, if I'm not around to consent, you get the idea here, right? He toured the entire eastern Mediterranean in that time, visiting Egypt, Crete, and Lydia, which is in modern-day Turkey. He also wrote a lot of poetry, and there are a lot of stories about these wanderings, but I'll leave you to find out about those on your own for now. When he returned, however, he found Athens in a crisis. His reforms were overturned, and eventually a new tyrant took over Athens. Now, Solon did attempt to rally public opposition and stop this coup, but long story short, he failed. Eventually, a revolution would occur, and the tyrant would be removed and democracy restored, but not until after Solon's death. So he went to his grave thinking his efforts to reform the Athenian government were a failure. But they were a short term failure and a long term success, because after that revolution, his reforms became the basis of classical Athenian government. And Athenians would look at him much the same way modern Americans like myself look at James Madison or George Washington. This is to the point that his laws were publicly posted so every Athenian could read them or have them read to them, considering literacy was not widespread, and were considered the embodiment of a balanced, humane constitution to a large number of ancient Greeks. So just keep in mind, just because something you push for fails, that doesn't mean you can't succeed eventually. You just have to keep trying, and you might only succeed after you're dead. So, yay. So, why did Plato name drop this guy? Well, first, Plato is an Athenian, keep that in mind, and his audience is mostly made up of other Athenian men. In fact, Plato is said to be descended from Solon's brother, so there's an element of, look where I got this from. By the way, this dude's in my family tree going on here, you know? But by using Solon, Plato is also trying to create legitimacy and belief in the minds of his audience for the ideals he's preaching here. And I hope this incredibly short and broad look at Solon of Athens helps you see why this might work. I'll include some links below to more sources if you're interested in Solon. I will also say if people comment that they would like to hear more, I'll be happy to make another video, maybe a more deeper dive into Solon. In fact, tell you what, just to make this easy, if this video hits 15 likes, that's what I'll do, a deeper, more detailed dive into the life of Solon. So don't be afraid to click that thumbs up there. All that said, thumbs up or not, I hope you found this video informative or at least entertaining. If so, please leave a like, comment, or even subscribe. All of those really help me in my struggle against the dread Lord algorithm. Terror be on his name. If you like to support this channel, consider joining the ranks of my ever-wise patrons whose votes decide content like this video. You can vote for as little as $1 a month. Plus, patrons also get bonus material, like my upcoming rant on Plato's Republic. Speaking of patrons, special thanks to Big Steve, my biggest patron supporter, and I hope the rest of you join me next week for Sir Francis Bacon's New Atlantis. Until then, take care of yourselves, each other, and as always, keep reading.